So you're walking down the beach and you're gonna try to pick out the toughest guy on that beach. You look for that chiseled bodybuilder. Is he the one that's always dominant? Chances are no. There's gonna be a scrawny guy who's got the attitude, who's gonna kick sand in his face. The same thing with deer. That's how dominance works in the whitetail herd. This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. Which bucks are most dominant in the whitetail herd? That's a question that we get a lot here at Deer and Deer Hunting, and I must have fielded that same question dozens of times over the years. It's one that's not easily answered because there's so many prongs to it. In short, what I tell people is the most dominant bucks, they're gonna have one of four things going on. It's gonna be antler size, body size, age, and attitude. And I did not list those in order. I actually listed those in reverse order, which is something that trips people up because when you think of a dominant buck, you think of the biggest buck in the woods. Not always the case. Charlie Alsheimer taught us this many years ago when he wrote an article called "Big Bucks Aren't Always Bullies." And in fact, a lot of times the biggest bucks, antler-wise, are the submissive ones in the herd. They grow big by being submissive and because they get better food and better opportunities. Next up would be body size. Those bigger bucks can be bullies because they are bigger. They're more muscular, they've got more strength normally. That is a good trait to have when you're a buck, but that's not always going to dictate dominance. Yes, it will. When he's getting in a shoving match or something, he can push his weight around and he's gonna have his way with a lot of deer, but a couple other things are gonna come into play that are gonna trump that deer. So next in line and second on the list is age. With age comes wisdom with humans and animals, especially deer. Those older, mature bucks tend to get their way. They tend to be dominant because they find their way, they find their core area that they like, they will run other bucks out of there. Chances are if he's mature, he's gonna be bigger. Chances are if he's mature, he has bigger antlers, so he's gonna have a lot of things going there, those lesser qualities that's gonna allow him to be dominant. But the number one thing that causes dominance in deer is his attitude. And when you think about deer, think about dogs or anything else. Dogs, a good example. You go and find a litter of pups and you get your pick of the litter. The one that you're gonna take is the one that has the best attitude. And normally with dogs, the number one dog, the alpha dog, is the one that's gonna be most aggressive, is his attitude. He might be the runt, he might not be, the biggest dog in the litter. Same thing with deer, and you see this time and time again. Those bully bucks are ones with what we'd say are inferior antlers compared to some of those nice majestic 10 and 12 pointers you see running around out there. They might not have the biggest body size, but they're the scrap fighters. They know how to push their way around. They know how to bully other deer. It's all about attitude.
In order to better understand just which bucks will rule the rut, we have to gain a deeper understanding of the internal factors that happen as the herd approaches fall.
When we start coming into fall, what we're experiencing is shorter and shorter days, longer and longer nights. As we have longer and longer periods of darkness, we have elevated, continuing to rise levels of melatonin production. And this begins to trigger a response in our deer. If we take a look at bucks, what we will see is we will begin to see a slow increase in production of testosterone. That testosterone is slowly rising to prepare that body for the rigors of the rut. They're going to start to put on body mass. You're going to have a thickening in the neck. You're going to start to see behavioral changes that is going to lead to increases in scraping. It's going to result in, this is also occurring around the time in September when the antlers are done hardening, when they're going to shed the velvet. But you're going to see a slow increase and rise in testosterone until probably late October. And then what we're going to see is we're going to see an incredible surge in testosterone at that time. So rising levels of testosterone are resulting in a preparation of the body to be able to compete for breeding opportunities. And then we're going to have a surge in testosterone that's going to result in dramatic behavioral changes and increased aggression that is going to drive that individual to behaviorally support the physical attributes that they've taken on. Large antlers, large body mass, but that surge in testosterone is going to increase aggression and is going to increase their ability to compete for emotionally and behaviorally compete for breeding opportunities. So you're going to have a massive surge in testosterone, but these animals just cannot sustain it. And you're going to start to see condition deteriorate, and condition is going to start to cause testosterone to decline. They've got to get that testosterone level back down to reduce those behavioral changes, reduce that aggression, because they just have to back out of that breeding season. They cannot sustain that indefinitely. It's going to drive them to death. And so you'll see a massive decrease in testosterone. You're going to see a decrease in condition that's driving that. That's ultimately going to result in shedding of the antlers following the breeding season. Normally, if we're taking a look at Michigan, Wisconsin, we're seeing that's resulting in shedding of the antlers beginning around Christmas time. If you get into some parts of the South, that may be taking place in February or even March.
So what's interesting about dominance in deer, what we've learned through research and some of the things that Dr. Dishkoff has learned at Auburn University, is that when everything comes together health-wise for a herd, you're going to see this well-balanced herd. We call it a finely tuned herd. That's where you have a good proportion of bucks and does, the age structure is there, and you're gonna have individuals from that herd, big antler deer, what we say, inferior antler deer, that are all gonna be taking part, and they all have their place in that hierarchy. And that's something as a hunter and land manager that you need to understand, is that it's just not the pretty majestic ones that we're managing for. We're managing for that structure of the herd, that every deer within that space is going to play an important role in the herd's health. And that's through dispersal, that's through dominance among male and female members of the herd, and it's also within the sex structure of that herd, buck to doe ratio.
Now we have a running joke in Kansas, me and my buddy Greg and my buddy Levi, and that's that when I'm up in the mountains, Levi's always texts me, hey, when are you gonna get to Kansas? When you come to Kansas? I'm thinking of these dates, I'm thinking of those dates. This is like elk hunting. And he always gets there ahead of me. And guess what? Every time he gets there early, he shoots a great buck. That deer this is why they call it the Flint Hills.
He's a giant.
Yeah, I talked Levi into leaving this deer for a few hours to make sure. That's why he's stiff.
That was a good call.
But he's dead. That is Kansas whitetails right there.
That's what I come for.
Look at that.
Deers.
Wow. And he's mature. He's got to be a beautiful place to hunt where at any moment a nice buck could come in. And I had at least a week, if not a week and a half, to get the job done.
Deer and Deer Hunting TV is brought to you by
That first morning, I saw several good bucks, but not the buck we wanted. They were all just good young deer, but just not the buck we wanted to shoot yet. And by we, I mean me. But we all help manage this property. We try to pass on the youngest bucks around and just look for mature deer. In Kansas, it's legal to bait. So almost all these setups we're hunting have bait or will have bait or had bait there. But these food plots my buddy Greg puts in are a key attractant, because the bait only goes so far, but these food plots work year round. Now Greg had soybeans in here earlier and the deer destroyed them, but it was good nutrition for him. Then he came in a little bit later and he drilled in this good winter wheat, and that's an all-around food source for the whitetails in the area here. So he keeps deer in his properties year-round by providing a buffet. Not only is the bait good and gives them a little bit of that, Pizza Hut style, big urge feeding, but then they can come in here and browse like they want to. And they also have great mass. There's acorns in every one of these draws. Lots of good browse. Kansas offers a lot. And when you supplement it, stuff like this, those bucks get even bigger. These deer have been coming out of these big draws around us. This is the Flint Hills and converging on this food plot, and they love to walk this edge. We just freshened up a scrape right over here on the edge, and I think it's going to be a pretty good sit. Bucks are beginning to sniff and search and look for does. They will nibble and spend a little time browsing here and there, but their main mission that first week or two of November is to find the very first estrus doe. Well, we hadn't even been in there that long. I was showing Levi some of the little things about my camera, how to run it, how to do it. If things get crazy, don't use a tripod, just hand hold it, follow the deer through while I get ready to shoot. When all of a sudden, across the field, Levi said, "There's a deer." I immediately lifted up my binocular, whoa, and I almost fell out of the blind.
I think I'm shaking more than you are.
So I'm with my buddy Levi Duncan from South Dakota. I'm Mark Kayser from Wyoming, and we're here in Kansas, the land of giants. And guess what? Freaking giant just walked in on us. Levi, come down here. Look at this buck. He is everything we didn't even think he was. He's way bigger than we thought he was. You know, you and Greg have been looking at pictures of him for the last few days before I got here, and you said, oh, he's a good deer, he's a shooter, but his left side's a little weak. Who cares if his left side's weak? Look at this. Giant Kansas deer, and the neck on him. This body is like, oh my gosh. It's Hulk Hogan of Kansas whitetail for body. And that placement on that shot couldn't have been any better. It come out right out of his heart. Oh my, this right side is amazing. But when you add up all these little, look at 1, 2, 3, 4 on the brow. Big old fork main beam. This, he broke this off fighting. Dude, coming to Kansas and hunting with you and Greg is the highlight of my fall. Now, the elk hunting is pretty good, but when you can come down here and see giant whitetails like this and hunt with friends that are just like family, this is it. This is it.
So here's a trick that you might want to keep in mind when hunting this fall. You got a nice food plot. I've planted brassicas here. This is rack fuel brassica. It is really coming in nicely. We're gonna hunt this afternoon. I've got a blind over here. It's about 35 yards right to this corner. But a lot of times with a food plot, what you probably find out, unless you get those deer right where they step out of the woods, sometimes you don't get a shot. They get out here, they get too far from you, especially when you're bow hunting, even crossbow hunting, and you don't get a shot. This is also from Rack Fuel. It's called Coax. It is called a stim tractant. Basically what this is, it's an attractant and it's a food stimulant. So I spray this on these leaves, on this brassica, and I also spray it on the trail leading out to the food plot. It gets those deer to stop, but it also gets them to eat. They're not only just eating the brassica plants, they're also eating anything I spray this on. It kickstarts their appetite and they really start eating. And when they get out here and they stop right in the edge of this field, it's gonna give me that opportunity to get a shot. You can use this in the woods. You can put it in, I found on a trail where they're not normally gonna stop. You can get them to stop there just long enough, and they might even be eating the leaves, even the browse that you spray this on. So that's a nice little extra thing that I can keep in my hip pocket. Yes, I like to hunt and see what happens, but also, especially when I'm targeting a specific buck and I wanna get him when he steps out, this might be my ace in the hole. When I practice before a hunt, I try to make it as realistic as possible, and that comes all the way down to having my bow, crossbow, gun, muzzleloader, whatever, positioned the way it's gonna be. Today I am sitting on this picnic table. It is the exact same height that my chair is back out in the field. And what I'm doing here is I just wanna make sure that this thing is shooting straight. If I miss out there, it's on me. This thing is locked in tight, ready to go. It is as solid as rest as I can get. And that's why they call it the death grip. Basically no hands. I can sit here and I can just relax, wait for the deer to come in. If I have to reposition it, it's just a simple shift. It's a really fluid head on there. It's a tripod head, just like a camera head. And it allows me micro adjustments, but the best thing about it, it is rock solid. So another thing I should mention is, even though I have this all adjusted and ready to go, this thing collapses into a very nice, neat little package, folds up, put it in its own carrying case, so I can strap it to my backpack, making it very portable to get it out in the hunting blind and ready to go. Bullseye.